What we need is not more medication, but more education, because the best prescription is knowledge. This is Exposé coming to you live from Lagos, Nigeria, every Monday on Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook simultaneously. I'm the regular host, Tony Akinyemi. Don't forget, what we need is not more medication, but more education, because the best prescription is knowledge. Hello and welcome. This is Exposé with Tony Akinyemi, brought to you every Monday, 8 p.m. West African time on YouTube and Facebook simultaneously. I thank you for always keeping a date with us. Today, July 4, 2023, we are starting a brand new season. And we're focusing on environmental toxins. The other time, we looked at environmental pollution. So consider this more or less part 2. But then we are starting a new season. I will be dealing with environmental toxins in particular. And there is a lot to discuss. So I want you to keep a date with us. Don't miss any episode. In fact, tell your friends, your neighbors, there is useful and usable information that we want to bring your way during this season. Of course, every season is always loaded in content. And this one is particularly unique in that it brings us the awareness, what we need to know, what we need to be acquainted with, so that we can take our own health destiny in our hands under God, so that we are not walking around ignorantly, completely oblivious of the hazardous elements in our environment and how they get into our systems and impact on our health. Many people are unaware. And that's why the Bible says, my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. Environmental toxins are so serious that every Dick, Tom, and Harry needs to be up to date, need to be acquainted with at least sufficient info to know how to prevent or minimize, at the very minimum, exposure to these toxins. We're looking at environmental toxins. Now, let me take you back to one of the seasons that we had in the past. During that season on Exposé with Tony Akinyemi, we discussed that is the cause of disease. That is the cause of disease. Now, that is my own creation. It's an acronym that I created. DATIISS. DATIISS. That is. And I say that is, those 7 things are the most prominent causes of disease in the natural realm. Now, as people of faith, we believe that the causes of disease could be spiritual and it could also be natural. I'm not delving into the spiritual side today. I'm looking at the natural side. Now, in the natural, there are 7 critical, fundamental, identifiable causes of disease. Now, in medical science, there is a whole branch of medicine that is referred to as etiology. Now, the British will spell it A-E-T-I-O-L-O-G-Y, etiology. The Americans will spell it E-T-I-O-L-O-G-Y, etiology. The difference is that the British will make it A-E. They start with A-E. The Americans will start with E, but both of them are pronounced the same way, etiology. Now, etiology is the branch of medicine that focuses on the study of the causes of disease. What are the things that cause disease? Okay, that's in medicine. It's called the etiology of disease. Now, so when the cause or causes of a particular medical condition is unknown, medical scientists will normally say, etiology unknown. In other words, we don't know the cause of this particular disease. Etiology unknown. Now, so in my own way, from my own standpoint, I coined that is to help us to be able to remember the natural causes of disease. Very simplified. I elaborated upon that during season 4 on Exposé with Tony Akinyemi. I used several episodes during that season to discuss the causes of disease and dysfunction in the human body. Now, in those episodes, those 7 identified causes of disease and dysfunction in the human body were what I illustrated with the acronym that is DATIISS. D standing for deficiency, A for abuse, T for toxicity or toxemia. The first I stands for injury. The second I stands for infections and infestations. There are 2 different things. Infections usually with microorganisms like bacteria, viruses, fungi. Infestation is when the body is infested with worms and parasites and things like that, okay? So infections and infestations, all right? And then the first S is sedentary living, inactivity, lack of physical exercise. And the second S stands for stress. So these are the 7 major primary fundamental causes of disease in the natural. Okay, I'm not delving into the spiritual, I'm not delving into genetics or hereditary situations right now, but I'm talking about deficiencies, abuses, toxicity, injury, infections and infestations, sedentary living, and stress. You will see that these 7 things are not problems that we are born with for the most part. For the most part, these are problems that we encounter along the way as we grow up in life, as we go on in life, okay? If a child is born and that child is not well nourished, then the child will be deficient in certain nutrients. And the deficiencies in nutrients can lead to disease and dysfunction in the body. They are called deficiency diseases. Okay? Sometimes also, somebody is born very healthy, very robust, everything is balm, and then the person begins to abuse his body or her body. And those abuses, some abuse with toxic drugs, some abuse with social drugs, with alcohol, with tobacco, with sexual promiscuity, and all kinds of abuses. And those abuses can then lead to disease and dysfunction. Sometimes also people come in contact with toxins. Toxins in the environment find their way into the body, and then they derange systems within the body, functions within the body. So the derangement will then lead to dysfunction, and then that will culminate in a disease. Okay, so toxicity, particularly environmental toxins, which is the focus of this season, okay, can be the cause of disease. And then injury. Some people are born healthy, perfect, and normal, and then in the course of their life's journey, they experience certain injuries. And there are different kinds of injuries. We discussed that in season 4. There is, emotional injury. Okay, people can be emotionally injured. There could be physical injury. There could be cellular injury. There could be EMF injury. All kinds of injuries can happen. And that can lay the foundation for disease. People can be involved in accidents and crashes, and they can fall, they can suffer fractures and whatever, and that can lead to disease. That's injury, all right? There's gross injury, there is emotional injury, there is repetitive stress injury, cellular injury, EMF injury, radiation injury, all kinds of injuries. And then, of course, infections. That's why, again, there are infectious diseases. Diseases can be caused by bacterial infection, viral infection, fungal infection. There could be mycotoxins from different kinds of, microorganisms. There could be infestations with parasites, okay? And that can lead to dysfunction and disease. And then when somebody also begins to grow up and gets to a point where they no longer exercise or are involved in physical activity, then what happens? Then again, dysfunction and disease can set in. And then, of course, stress, chronic stress, acute stress, can get into people's lives and disrupt, derange, and cause dysfunction, culminating in disease. So again, that is the cause of disease: deficiencies, abuses, toxicity, injury, infections and infestations, sedentary living, and stress. Now, during the season of Exposé with Tony Akinyemi, in this season, okay, we are going to be focusing on the third factor in that is, which is toxicity. Now, with specific emphasis on environmental toxins. Now, during the last season, I interviewed Professor Joshua Ojo in the last three, episodes of Exposé, which he helped us a great deal to shed light on the subject of environmental pollution. We looked at agrochemicals, we looked at toxic fumes, and then we looked at neurotoxicants, particularly heavy metals, all right, like lead, mercury, cadmium, arsenic, and what have you. Okay, I interviewed Professor Ojo via Zoom, and he did an excellent job opening our eyes to so many wonderful things. And so that prompted me to continue to search further and read further so that I could, glean and garner information, pieces of information, so I can lay them on the table for all of us to be informed so that we can be guided in the way that we conduct our affairs, either at home or in the industry where we operate, to minimize our exposure to these environmental toxins and also propose and suggest, ways of recovery for those who are already exposed and impacted in the area of their health. We're going to go on a short break, and then we'll come back and continue our conversation on environmental toxins, and we will be bringing so much to the table. Don't go away.
Meet Emily. She is passionate about living a healthy life, but finds it difficult to access information on health and wellness.
Cancer is survivable.
That is until she discovered the online healthy living training offered by Reverend Tony Akinyemi on lms.rafainstitute.org. The online healthy living training program is a comprehensive interactive course that covers topics such as nutrition, fitness, stress management, and mental health. The course is designed to provide participants with practical tips and strategies to improve their health and well-being. Emily is now equipped with the knowledge and skills she needs to live a healthy life. Join Emily and countless others in living a healthy life by signing up for the online healthy living training program today.
Welcome back. This is Exposé with Tony Akinyemi. What we need is not more medication, but more education. For the best prescription, of course, is knowledge. To be informed is to be transformed. To be uninformed is to be deformed. My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. You will know the truth, and the truth will make you free. For by knowledge shall the just be delivered. We're talking environmental toxins. And then we went back to a previous season where we discussed, that is, the cause of disease. We looked at deficiencies, we looked at abuses, we looked at toxicity, we looked at injury, and then infections and infestations, sedentary living, and stress as factors that cause disease along our life's journey. That's not talking about diseases that are congenital, diseases that we were born with. No, we're not talking about that. Neither are we talking about genetic, diseases. Nor are we talking about spiritually induced diseases. But we're talking about problems, medical conditions, symptoms, diseases that develop along the way as we go on in life. As we come in contact or interact with some of these factors, they then engender disease. When we become deficient in nutrients, that can precipitate dysfunction and disease in the body. When we abuse our bodies with substances, that can generate dysfunction and disease. When we come in contact with toxins, particularly environmental toxins, they find their way into our bodies, they can cause disease. Again, when we are injured, when we suffer injury, that can lay the foundation for lifelong suffering, okay? And when we are also infected, bacterial infection, fungal infection, viral infection, that can lead to derangement, that can lead to dysfunction, that can lead to disease. When we are infested with parasites, that can also lead to disease, okay? And when we are sedentary, when we are not active, we don't exercise, we don't move physically, that can also precipitate disease. And when we are stressed up, that can also lead to all kinds of diseases, including mental health issues. So that is the cause of disease. Now, out of the 7, we are zeroing in this season of Exposé with Tony Akinyemi on toxicity, and we are focusing on environmental toxins. Why did I say environmental toxin? Because toxins actually come from 2 major sources. We have endotoxins, and then we have exotoxins. Endotoxins are internally generated toxins. That is, toxins that are generated right inside our body. Now, if you eat and drink, you will digest the food and you will process the food. You will extract the nutrients, the useful and usable parts of the food. And then there is the waste product of the food, which must be eliminated. Either the ones in your GI tract that you poo-poo out, or metabolic waste, even from your cells that are brought back into the bloodstream, so your liver and your kidneys can detox them from your system. These are all metabolic wastes. Those are internally generated toxins. Of course, there are others, but we discussed that extensively when we looked at that is. So I'm not going there this time. Those are endotoxins, internally generated toxins. The body keeps on generating toxins inside, but then there are, elimination mechanisms that God has put in place: our liver, our kidneys, our lungs, our lymphatic system, our skin, our GI tract. All of these are channels of elimination. So we eliminate solid waste, we eliminate liquid waste, and we eliminate gaseous waste, okay? We breathe out carbon dioxide, we flatulate, and release gas from the backyard, okay? Ooh, that's gas going out there. When we belch, that's gas going out there, okay? So gaseous waste. And then liquid waste, we sweat, we wee-wee, all right? And solid waste, we poo-poo, all right? So those are channels of elimination to eliminate internally generated waste primarily. But then there are exotoxins, toxins that come from outside the body into the body. And those are in 2 categories. We have natural exotoxins and we have synthetic exotoxins. Natural exotoxins are external or environmental toxins in the environment that are natural. They are in nature, okay? And we come in contact with them, and they may be toxic to our bodies. And then there are the synthetic one. Those are anthropogenic kind of toxins, toxins that are generated, that are synthesized by man. Like plastic, for example. You won't find plastic in nature. Plastic is man-made. Man, synthesized it and produced it, and then it can get into the body, and then it can impact our health. That's why we have plastics, products that are BPA-free plastic, okay? Because BPA, bisphenol A, can actually be toxic to the human body and create dysfunction and disease in the body. So environmental toxins essentially comprise of those that are natural in nature and those that are man-made. All of them, regardless of whether they are natural or synthetic, do have implications for our health when they get into our body. Now, most likely, most of us have heard of the Flint, Michigan water crisis of 2015. In the year 2015, there was this water crisis in Flint, in Michigan, in the USA, where residents were exposed to bacteria, byproducts of disinfectants and dangerous levels of lead. Now, this is just one example of how we can be unexpectedly exposed to chemicals that can harm our health. Now, on a daily basis, we are exposed to molds, pesticides, and a variety of environmental toxins. They enter our bodies through what we apply to our skin. Those are contactants, all right? What we eat and drink, those are ingestants. What we breathe in the air, those are inhalants. And then the water we swim in, they also come in contact with our skin, and our skin can absorb the toxins in the water. the water we swim in, we bathe in, and we shower in, okay? Now, and over time, these toxins build up in the body and they can cause illness, disease, poor health, and what have you. Now, toxins can even be responsible for childhood developmental disorders. You know, Professor Joshua Ojo underscored that a great deal when I interviewed him. Professor Joshua Ojo is of the physics department, a professor of environment physics of the Obafemi Awolowo University, Ile-Ife. He underscored that you know, exposure to environmental toxins, whether when a woman is pregnant with a baby or when a baby is newly born, if the baby comes in contact with these environmental toxins, it can actually lead to childhood developmental disorders such as autism and you know, ADHD, attention deficit and hyperactivity disorder. Now, clearly, environmental toxins can be a problem for human health. And so all hands must be on deck to protect ourselves from these environmental toxins. Now, I read an article, you know, in PubMed, and the abstract of that article in particular caught my fancy. And this is what it reads, you know, in PubMed. It says, and I quote, it says, the main threats to human health from heavy metals are associated with exposure to lead, cadmium, mercury, and arsenic. Now, these metals have been extensively studied, and their effects on human health regularly reviewed by international bodies such as the WHO, that's the World Health Organization. Heavy metals have been used by humans for thousands of years. Although several adverse health effects of heavy metals have been known for a long time, exposure to heavy metals, you know, continues. And it's even increasing in some parts of the world, in particular in less developed countries, though emissions have declined in most developed countries over the last 100 years. Cadmium compounds are currently mainly used in rechargeable nickel-cadmium batteries. Cadmium emissions have increased dramatically during the 20th century. One reason being that cadmium-containing products are rarely recycled, but often dumped together with household waste, unquote. All right, so that is a clear-cut statement there that environmental toxins are real and they are really impacting on human health. Now, let me talk about something here today that, again, I you know, came up with. I call it downstream medicine versus upstream medicine. Downstream medicine versus upstream medicine. So what's downstream medicine? What is upstream medicine? Now, look at it this way. If you look at a river or a stream that is flowing, a stream is flowing. And that stream, if you pour something at the source, it flows all the way downstream. And it continues to impact the lives of aquatic animals and maybe even plants along the pathway of the stream, okay? Now, when I was growing up as a child, you know, in those days, both in Ghana and in Nigeria, you know, there were some very terrible practices that villagers and local people, you know, indulged in that were very dangerous, but we didn't realize it at the time. I mean, I was under 10 this time that I'm talking about, but I still remember it vividly, like yesterday. When villagers, because of poverty, couldn't afford to, you know, obtain protein for their food, and they needed to eat meat or fish or something like that, and they couldn't afford it. They didn't have the money to buy beef or buy goat meat or buy fish or buy eggs or buy milk or whatever. They had to look for other ways by which they could get at least a little protein into their diet. And so what they did in the village, or should I say what we did, of course I was a child, I only met them doing it and I joined them in doing it. Now I never directly, you know, polluted the waters, the stream or the rivers, but I joined them in harvesting the proceeds of the pollution. What they did in the villages in those days, both in Ghana and in Nigeria, was to take Gamalin 20, DDT, and they would go pour it upstream. They would pour it into the river, a whole tin of Gamalin 20. They would empty it into the river. Gamalin 20, for God's sake, is DDT. DDT can cause hormone disruption. DDT can cause cancer. DDT can cause birth defect. And yet, in the villages in those days, they will pour Gamalin 20 into the river or into the stream, and then it will wash downstream. And as it goes downstream, fish and crab and all aquatic animals will begin to, they will begin to float into the surface of the river, trying to get fresh air, trying to escape. Some of them will die. And then the villagers will go downstream with their baskets, and they will be scooping the dead fish that are swimming, flowing downstream. Be packing, and we see baskets and baskets of fish and crabs and all kinds of aquatic animals. And the villagers will have a feast for the next 1 week or several weeks, from not knowing that even those fish are contaminated with DDT. But we consumed them. We consumed them. Only God showed us mercy. I don't know, maybe some of the people listening to me can relate to that right now. So we pollute it upstream, and then we harvest the animals downstream. I hope everybody is well informed today not to do that. I'm talking about the 1960s now, 1960s. That's what I'm referring to. This happened, in my lifetime when I was a child. And I ate fish caught that way, and many, many other villagers. Only God knows the kind of damage that did to so many people. Thank God we are still alive today. So many dangerous adventures that we undertook out of ignorance in those days. Now, so let me finish with downstream medicine and upstream medicine. So what I'm talking about here, I just digress to that to illustrate something. Now, downstream medicine is like the villagers with their baskets waiting downstream when the fish had already been poisoned upstream, and they are now struggling for life. They are about to die. They are struggling for life. They are floating on top of the water, and they are struggling, and then you use the basket to capture them downstream, and now you are trying to administer medicine to them to see if you could save their lives. That's downstream medicine. But upstream medicine is for you to go upstream and find out what was it that was done upstream that made the fish to start gasping for life, and stop it upstream so that there will be no need to go wait downstream to help solve the problem. That's what I mean by upstream medicine and downstream medicine. Now, let me relate that to medical science as it is practiced today. Now, conventional medicine, allopathy, or allopathic medicine, as we know it today, what we call orthodox medicine, largely practices what I call downstream medicine. What do I mean by that? Now, that's a situation where professionals, such as doctors, pharmacists, nurses, physiotherapists, physical therapists, radiologists, you name them, all of them are waiting downstream in the hospitals. They are there in the hospitals. They are well-trained, well-equipped. They have all their tools, all their gadgets, all the skills. They are just waiting there downstream to attend to patients once they have come down with a medical condition, particularly in the emergency room. They are just waiting there. When you are sick, come over here. We are waiting for you. That's downstream medicine. Those doctors and nurses and pharmacists and physiotherapists, and you name them, those professionals, wonderful people they are, okay? They don't go to the homes of the patients before they took ill to educate them about how not to take ill. But they are waiting in the clinics. They are waiting in the hospitals. Whenever you are down, meet us here. We are here for you. They are waiting downstream to see how many they can salvage, how many poisoned fish flowing downstream can be salvaged, can be saved alive, or can be helped to continue to live even with some derangement because of the poisoning that they experienced. That's downstream medicine, all right? But upstream medicine, which I also call holistic medicine, on the other hand, largely practices upstream medicine. Holistic medicine is upstream medicine. It's a situation in which The root causes of problems are researched and investigated in order to alert people to modifiable risk factors so as to avoid or at least minimize the incidence of disease in the first instance, okay? To avoid, coming down with serious medical conditions. That's what I call preventive medicine at its best. That is upstream medicine. Let's go upstream. Let's find out what is polluting the river. Let's stop the pollution so that the life of all animals in the stream is not at risk. Of course, despite our best efforts, some of us will still come down with medical conditions. Therefore, downstream medicine is still needed. I'm not saying it's not needed at all. It is needed. But what I'm saying is that our emphasis should be more on upstream medicine or preventive medicine. And that's why I'm bringing this series to you. Some people might be wondering, why are you talking so much about environmental toxins, about heavy metals, about lead, about mercury, about arsenic, about cadmium, about aluminum, about toxic fumes and toxic gases and toxic agrochemicals, blah, 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 blah. That is upstream medicine. I'm trying to alert you to the very things that could cause derangement, dysfunction, and disease down the road, so that you can minimize your exposure at the very least, or probably even avoid exposure entirely where that is possible, so that there will be no need for intervention in the future, because then you are well, you are not sick, okay? So what I'm doing here by giving you health education is upstream medicine, all right? Of course, downstream medicine is also needed, because some people will still come down with something and they will need help. And so the people waiting in the hospitals to attend to them, in the emergency rooms to attend to them, they are needed. Let them be there. But it will be fewer and fewer people that will be needing them if all of us pay attention to preventive medicine or upstream medicine. This is how far we can go today on Exposé with Tony Akinyemi. I want to appreciate you for your time with me. I hope you enjoyed it. We'll be continuing this wonderful conversation. I don't want you to miss any episode. Please, I want you to give us thumbs up right there. Click on the thumbs up button right there. Click on the share button and also share it with your friends, colleagues, and neighbors. And also make sure that you subscribe to our YouTube channel and like us on Facebook. God bless you. Have a very beautiful, wonderful, productive week. And I pray that the rest of the month will be glorious for you in Jesus' name. Thank you. Love you. And bye-bye.
Meet Emily. She is passionate about living a healthy life, but finds it difficult to access information on health and wellness.
Cancer is survivable.
That is until she discovered the online healthy living training offered by Reverend Tony Akinyemi on lms.rafainstitute.org. The online healthy living training program is a comprehensive interactive course that covers topics such as nutrition, fitness, stress management, and mental health. The course is designed to provide participants with practical tips and strategies to improve their health and well-being. Emily is now equipped with the knowledge and skills she needs to live a healthy life. Join Emily and countless others in living a healthy life by signing up for the online healthy living training program today.